Hello everyone, hope you all are doing well. Welcome to Diplomat's Desk. I am your host Meet Shah. Let us start with the headline. Everyone is celebrating India has surpassed Japan and become a larger economy. That headline can be true and still hide the most important reality. So in this video I am going to do two things. First, I will explain exactly what that headline means in economic terms using the cleanest definition. Second, I will bring the harsh facts that the headline avoids, what this ranking does not mean for everyday life of an average Indian, and what India must fix if it wants the ranking to reflect real prosperity. Now, what does larger economy actually mean? When media outlets says India is now larger than Japan, they almost always mean one specific measurement: GDP, gross domestic product, measured in current prices, converted in USD at market exchange rates. GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced inside a country in a year. So if India produces more cars, more medicines, more software services, more construction, more transport, more meals in restaurants, and more everything else, then its GDP rises. But here's the key: when we compare India and Japan in USD, we are not just comparing production, we are also comparing currencies. Because India counts output in Indian rupees, Japan counts output in Japanese yen, and then someone converts both into the United States dollars. That conversion step matters hugely, and it can change the rankings even when people's real life do not change much at all. So yes, India can move above Japan in current USD GDP because India is growing fast and because Japan currency is weak. Now let us anchor this with real numbers. The International Monetary Fund projections that many Indian and global outlets cite place India and Japan extremely close around calendar year 2025, close enough that the ranking can flip on small revisions. For example, multiple reports citing that International Monetary Fund put India around 4.187 trillion USD and Japan around 4.186 trillion USD for 2025. That is not crushing overtake, that is a photo finish. And photo finishes are sensitive to measurement choices. Now we reach your central point: population. Japan's population is roughly 124 million. India's population is roughly 1.45 billion. That means India has around 11 to 12 times as many people. So here's the blunt statistic that cuts through the celebration. If two countries have roughly similar total GDP, but one country has over 10 times the people, then output per person is not even in the same universe. And output per person is where living standards starts. The World Bank's most recent value shows Japan's GDP per person about 32,000 USD and India is about 2,700 USD in current USD terms. That is not a small gap, that is a canyon. So when a headline says India surpassed Japan, a responsible reader should immediately ask, surpassed in what? Total output, yes, barely in some projections, but in output per person, India is still far behind. Now, let us dig into the most misunderstood part: why exchange rates can shift these league tables. Imagine Japan produces the same quantity of cars, chips, machine, and services, but the Japanese yen becomes weaker relative to the USD. When you convert Japanese yen measured GDP into USD, the number looks smaller even if the real production inside Japan did not collapse. This is not theory, it has been happening. A weak Japanese yen has become a major economical and political issue because it raises import costs and hits households, and it has been discussed as a persistent problem by Japanese business lobbies and government officials. And analysts have pointed out that Japan's drop in USD nominal ranking can hide what is happening in real output, precisely because currency moves distort the comparison. So yes, India rise matters, but the Japan's comparison is also partly a currency story. That means the emotional framing, we beat Japan, can be economically shallow because a currency driven ranking shift does not automatically translate into Indians becoming comfortable, secure, well educated, and healthy at Japanese levels. Now let us bring the harsh facts. India focused. A larger total economy gives a country power, more tax base, more ability to invest, more geopolitical weight, more bargaining power in trade and technology. But a larger total economy does not guarantee that most citizens live well. To see that, compare basic development indicators. The World Bank report life expectancy around 84 years for Japan and around 72 years for India. This is 12-year difference. A 12-year difference is not an abstract statistic. It is millions of lost years of human life. Now look at sanitation. The World Bank safely Managed sanitation services indicator is nearly 99% for Japan and around 52% for India in recent data. That is not a ranking problem, that is a dignity problem. Now look at the internet usage. Japan is around high 80s in shares of people using the internet, and India is much lower, around the mid 50s in recent World Bank figures. If you want an economy to be productive, digitized, and high income, broad connectivity is not optional. And then there is the human capital. The World Bank's Human Capital Index is designed to summarize how health and education shape the productivity of the next generation of workers. Japan's Human Capital Index is around 0.8 and India's around 0.49 in the World Bank data. That gap is not bad branding, that gap is future productivity. So if you want the harsh truth in one sentence, here it is. India may be overtaking Japan in total GDP measured in current USD, but India is still very far from Japan in the metrics that describes the living standards of the average Indian person. Now, let us explain a concept that confuses even educated audiences: purchasing power parity. Purchasing power parity tries to answer what can people actually buy with their income inside their own country. Prices in India are generally lower than prices in Japan. So one unit of money in India can buy more basic goods and services than the same converted amount would buy in Japan. That is why economists often use international dollars and purchasing power parity adjustments to compare living standards and real output volumes. Our World in Data explains that these adjustments correct for cost differences between countries. But here is the trap. Purchasing power parity can make India look bigger than it is in market exchange rate dollars, and people then conclude we are richer than the world thinks. No, purchasing power parity is useful for comparing the volume of production and consumption, but it does not mean India has the same global purchasing power as a high income country, because global trade for key technologies, energy, and capital goods often happens at market exchange rates. So when someone says India is already huge by purchasing power parity, the correct response is yes, India has a large domestic economy in terms of what it can produce and consume at local prices, but that does not erase the massive gap in income per person, public services, and productivity. Now let us be fair. The headline exists because India has been growing faster than many major economies and its total output has genuinely expanded. Even the World Bank most recent actual values show India around 3.9 trillion United States dollars and Japan's around 4.0 trillion USD in 2024. That is already extremely close in level terms. So this is not pure propaganda. India is genuinely climbing. But the deeper message is not India is now like Japan. The deeper message is India is becoming too large to ignore. But also India needs to improve per person to declare victory. Both are true at the same time. Let us address the emotional contradiction people feel. How can we be fourth but still feel behind? Now, because the national total can be huge while most individuals remain at the low or middle income, India has hundreds of millions of people. Even modest improvements for each person add up to a very large total. A simple analogy: a stadium can have a very loud crowd even if each person is only clapping lightly, because there are so many people. India's size amplifies totals. Japan's prosperity amplifies per person measures. That is why both countries can look similar in total output while being worlds apart in everyday life. Now, more harsh honesty without denying progress. India has made major gains in reducing extreme poverty by international lines, and World Bank poverty indicators show much lower share under the newer 3 USD per day in 2021 purchasing power parity line in recent years. But here's the uncomfortable part. 3 USD dollars per day is an extreme minimum for survival comparison across countries. It is not a middle class life. So celebrating low extreme poverty is appropriate, but using that as a proof that India has arrived is not. For a country aiming to match Japan like prosperity, the relevant debate shifts to quality jobs, education outcomes, health systems, urban infrastructure, safety, air quality, and productivity. The fourth largest base does not solve those. If India wants the headline to mean something real, the scoreboard must shift from totals to transformation. Here are the metrics that matters most for India over the next decade. First, output per person must rise much faster than population growth. That requires productivity growth, not just more workers. Two, human capital must rise because healthy, educated workers create higher value output. The human capital index gap is a warning signal, not a trivia fact. Three, basic public services must become near universal. Sanitation and health outcomes are not cosmetic, they are inputs into productivity. Four, India must expand high productivity sectors, not just services for the global elite, but manufacturing depth, logistic efficiency, and formal employment that scales. Fifth, currency stability and external balance matters because global purchasing power depends on market exchange rates, and exchange rate responds to the trade deficit, capital flows, and investor confidence. Even India's currency story shows pressures. Recent reporting noted a weak Indian rupee and balance of payments trend during 2025, which measures because it affects import cost at global purchasing power. So, if you want a harsh summary, the ranking can improve while the currency weakens, and that can still hurt households through higher import prices. Now we can conclude cleanly. Yes, by one widely used measure, India can be ranked above Japan in total economic size in current prices converted to USD, as reflected in widely cited IMF projections and government linked summaries. But the celebration often carries an implied meaning that is not supported by the numbers. It implies India has reached Japan level prosperity. It has not. Japan's output per person is still more than an order of magnitude higher in current dollar terms, and the development indicators, life expectancy, sanitation coverage, human capital show that India's challenge is not winning a ranking. India's challenge is building a high productivity, high human development economy for 1.45 billion people. So treat the headline the way an economist would treat, if as one data point, not as a victory speech. If you like this breakdown, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching this one. See you in the next.